Joe was a wealthy and handsome man. He had everything money could buy: luxury cars, a mansion, and servants at his beck and call. But despite all his riches, he had a terrible flaw. He lacked manners. Joe spoke to people harshly, never caring about their feelings. He humiliated those who worked for him, shouted at strangers, and treated everyone as if they were beneath him. His rude and arrogant behavior made him unbearable to be around. When it came to relationships, Joe was no better. Every time he went on a date, he found something to insult the woman about. He would mock their appearance, the way they spoke, or even what they ate. By the end of the first date, the woman would always leave in anger or tears, vowing never to see him again. Because of this, no woman wanted to be near him, let alone marry him. But Joe didn't care. He believed that as long as he had money, he didn't need anyone's approval. He looked down on poor people, mocking them whenever he had the chance. If he saw a beggar on the street, he would laugh and say, "Look at you, so miserable and useless. In your next life, try to be rich like me." He believed that poor people were beneath him, and that they would never succeed in life. One day, as Joe was walking down the road in his expensive designer suit, he saw an old woman lying on the ground. She looked weak and sick, barely able to move. It was clear that she was at the point of death. Instead of helping her, Joe stopped and sneered. "Look at you, old woman. What a miserable sight. This is why being poor is a curse. If you had money, you wouldn't be lying here like this. But I can't help you. I don't want to get my clothes dirty. Just die and let people have peace." He laughed cruelly, shook his head, and walked away without a second thought. The old woman, abandoned and helpless, took her last breath. She died alone because no one stopped to help her. But what Joe didn't know was that life has a way of repaying cruelty. The day of reckoning was coming, and soon Joe would learn a lesson he would never forget. Joe lived in a grand mansion with his mother. Although he was rude to everyone else, his mother was the one person he truly loved. He never played or joked with her, but he made sure she had everything she needed. He provided her with the best clothes, food, and luxury. In his eyes, his mother was his world, the only person he couldn't afford to lose. One night as Joe lay in bed, something strange happened. A cold wind filled the room, and suddenly a shadowy figure appeared before him. It was the old woman he had mocked and abandoned on the street. Her eyes burned with anger as she stared at him. Joe sat up in shock. His heart pounded in his chest. "How is this possible? You are dead!" he gasped. The old woman's voice echoed through the room, sending chills down Joe's spine. "Yes, I am dead, and you are the reason. You laughed at me when I was helpless, mocked me in my suffering, and left me to die. Now I have come to repay you." Joe trembled but forced himself to put on a brave face. "Repay me? What can a dead old woman do to me?" he scoffed. The old woman raised her hand, pointing at Joe with a fierce look. "Since you laughed at my suffering, you will be cursed to laugh at funerals and corpses for the rest of your life. Even if your own mother, the person you love the most, dies, you will not cry. Instead, you will laugh at her lifeless body." Joe's blood ran cold. "No, that's impossible. You're just talking nonsense." The old woman's eyes glowed with an eerie light. "Mark my words, Joe, the day will come when you will regret your cruelty. But by then it will be too late." With that, the old woman vanished into thin air. Joe sat frozen in fear. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, breathing heavily. What just happened? Was that real? Or was it just a dream? He whispered to himself. After a moment, he shook his head. Nonsense. She was just blabbering. Nothing will happen to me. I am rich, powerful, and in control of my life. Even if she dares to appear again, I will teach her a lesson she will never forget. But deep down, a small part of him was unsettled. What if the curse was real? What if something terrible was about to happen? Little did Joe know, fate was already preparing to show him the true power of the old woman's curse. After the old woman cursed Joe, strange things began to happen. Whenever he attended a funeral, something beyond his control took over him. The moment he saw a corpse, he would burst into loud laughter. It didn't matter how hard he tried to stop, his body refused to obey him. People stood in shock and disbelief, staring at him as if he had lost his mind. How can he be laughing at the dead? They whispered among themselves. Some were filled with rage. This is disrespectful, they shouted, throwing him out of funerals. Word spread quickly throughout the village. People started avoiding Joe, calling him a ritualist. That man is cursed. He laughs at the dead. He must have made a deal with evil spirits, they said. Funeral after funeral, the same thing happened. Joe would see the corpse and start laughing uncontrollably, making people wonder if he had lost his soul. Then one day, tragedy struck. Joe's beloved mother died. For the first time in his life, Joe felt true pain. His heart was shattered. He wanted to mourn her, to cry for her. But when he stood before her lifeless body, the curse took hold. Instead of tears, laughter erupted from his mouth. He laughed so loudly that it echoed through the empty mansion. He wanted to stop, but he couldn't. His mother, the only person he truly loved, was gone, and all he could do was laugh. The villagers refused to attend her funeral. He laughed at our loved ones, so let him bury his mother alone, they said. And so, Joe was left alone with his mother's corpse, laughing as she was buried. He was grieving, but his laughter betrayed his sorrow. That night, he couldn't take it anymore. He was broken, desperate, and filled with regret. So, he did something he never thought he would do. He went to the grave of the old woman he had mocked and abandoned. Falling to his knees, Joe wept. "Please forgive me. I was cruel, arrogant, and heartless. I now understand how much pain I caused others. I beg you, take this curse away. I will never insult or mistreat anyone again." A cold wind blew through the cemetery, and suddenly the old woman's spirit appeared before him. She looked at Joe with sad yet firm eyes. "Joe, you brought this upon yourself. But I will give you one last chance. If you truly want to be free, you must change your ways. Love and care for people, show kindness, and never insult or humiliate anyone again. Only then will the curse be lifted." Joe nodded eagerly. "I promise, I will change. Please give me another chance." The old woman looked deep into his heart, then slowly nodded. "Then go and prove it." And with that, she disappeared. From that day on, Joe changed completely. He became a kind, respectful, and humble man. He helped the poor, treated people with kindness, and never insulted anyone again. He laughed with people, not at them. The curse was broken. At funerals, he no longer laughed. Instead, he cried when others cried, showing the respect he once lacked. For the first time in his life, Joe found true peace, and so he lived happily, knowing that being kind and humble was far more valuable than all the riches in the world. Moral lessons. 1. Kindness and respect matter. No matter how rich or powerful you are, treating others with kindness is what truly makes you great. 2. Pride leads to downfall. Looking down on others can lead to unexpected consequences. 3. True wealth is in the heart. Money cannot buy character, love, or respect. 4. It's never too late to change. No matter how far down the wrong path you have gone, you can always turn back and become a better person. Thank you for watching and supporting my stories. I hope this tale has inspired you to always be kind and respectful to others. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Stay blessed, and remember, kindness always wins.